Today's talk is titled Reset Buttons. It's going to be kind of a talk on post-meditation. Quite often I'm talking about meditation, sit down, hold still, watch what moves, those kinds of things. And quite often the concepts and so on that support the teaching of the Buddha. Today, and this can go different directions if you have questions about it as we go, but the first thing I want to say about reset buttons is post-meditation. We find ourselves in a particular dilemma, position. Just recently somebody just texted me, and this is one that they've been using, and they were thanking me for, I didn't make it up, for talking about it and suggesting it. And that is to say, as something is happening that you're upset with, you're irritated with, you're blaming somebody for, you're all snarled up in your own kind of irritation, is to say, actively say, thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. And if nobody's around, or if you don't, you're not going to feel self-conscious, you can even bow. Thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. And then say it again. Thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. And then enunciate the words, thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. And say it and be an actor. Mean it. Do it. Embody that. Embody that. And then after you do that, then come back to just observing what happens in the consciousness. The other one is, of course, some of you have heard me talk about the one that I used in the 80s when I was going through some bouts of depression. I would, as soon as I would awaken in the morning, I would feel terribly useless, depressed, not want to be here. I also should say that has not left. And you should ask questions about that if you don't understand what I'm talking about. But in the 80s, I would say it was just haunted me. It's just a terrible feeling to wake up, and the only thing I could think of to do is just distract myself. Go get up, go make coffee, talk to somebody, call somebody, watch TV, turn on the news. I'd rather be distracted by horrible events in the news and feel my own discomfort, which of course is a very active kind of ignorance, or just dissociating from that emotion. So that one that I would use in the morning for that was the first of the 4 reminders, which is first, contemplate the preciousness of being free and well-favored, difficult to gain, easy to lose. Now I must do something meaningful. First, so I would go back and I wouldn't even have my eyes open yet. I would say, first, contemplate the preciousness, the value, how valuable this is. We don't know how we did this. We don't know if we would do it again. We don't know if we could keep from doing it again. Might be another way of looking at it. But here we are, we're human beings, I guess. There's consciousness manifesting through these 6 sense fields, drawing in through these 6 sense fields, making assumptions, congealing into a self that is completely an imposter. But you have to realize it. We can talk about these concepts all day long, all night long, all week long. But you have to realize it. As far as I know, I don't know everything, but I know a whole bunch. And one of the things I know is that you can do this yourself. Anybody that's sitting here looking at me, talking, or listening to me while I'm talking, you can do this. You just have to be insistent about it. You have to insist on awakening. You have to insist on seeing the truth for yourself. One of the ways you can do this is to use these reset buttons. Thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. You just go right in the face of ego, self-centeredness, wanting things to be different than they are, and just say, this is perfect. This is perfect. Thank you very much. And then, of course, you have to put some energy in that and mean that. Not easy, because you could say, well, isn't that being deceptive? Isn't that lying? Isn't that, well, we're lying all the time anyway. You're lying. The big lie is you think you are somebody, and you keep imputing information about that self that is either getting ahead or falling behind. And I say, knock it off. Don't do that. And how do you not do that? You have to see the way in which you're doing it. How do you see the way in which you're doing it? Hold very still and watch how you keep adding up things to make up an I, or a me who is experiencing whatever. First, contemplate the preciousness, value of being free. Kind of how free, how? Free to even be here, free to lay in bed all day long or not, free to get up and have a body, actually have to make use of this powerful gravity that we have nothing to do with. We didn't order it. We can't fire it. We can't make it keep happening. If gravity vanishes, we won't know why, but everything will come floating into space. First, contemplate the preciousness of being free, free to come and go. Some places you could be born, you're not so free. Your whole life might be about just trying to get away out of the gunfire, as we all know. Well favored. This is really an important one here. If you're sitting in this room, you're listening to this old man, or if you're tuning in on this device, technology, then you're well favored in that you are not so shut down, closed off, sealed off, and so locked into your own ideas and opinions and beliefs that you can't walk into a room like this or tune into something like this and give it the benefit of the doubt. Listen to what someone is saying about this. They're saying there is no solitude. The whole source of all of the suffering, all the pain that we cause ourselves, cause others, blame on others, blame on ourselves, for that matter. Thread. It's false. It's unreal. It's real in that it's there, but it's unreal in that it's not there. So I'll say it again. It's real in that it's there, but it's unreal in that it's not there. It's like the example I always use. What is that? Porcupine in the attic, right? Is that the one I use? No, it's the alligator in the kitchen. Sorry. There's an alligator in the kitchen. Everyone sees it. If you've been in the kitchen, you remember the kitchen. I'm saying alligator in the kitchen. Everyone sees a different size one. Everyone sees a different color one. Everyone sees them pointing different directions. Probably nobody is right, because I'm the one that said it, so I know which way it's pointing. No, wait a minute, it just changed again. Who's doing that? So it's both real in that we can see it. Like they say, seeing is believing. Well, you can see that alligator. It's blue. It's a blue alligator. The eyes the size of golf balls. Right? Right. So it's both there. It's real and it's unreal. It's like a dream. When you're in the dream, this is real. There really is a spider chasing me the size of a Volkswagen. And I got to get out of here. And we wake up and that's not true. Well, it's true and false. If you didn't have a body mind and that spider came after you, you couldn't escape by waking up. And why? Because you need to be awakened before you lose this body mind again. Don't live this life without and go back into the netherworld without awakening. Awaken first, and that way you won't see any. The only thing you'll see difference between being in a body and being out of a body is you won't have a body. Nothing else is going to change. It's not a promise. Something might change. Pardon me again. Free and well favored. Well favored in that you're not so clogged up that you can come here and listen to this. Listen to this teaching, the teaching of the Buddha's Dharma, presented by somebody who's been looking at it for a while. Difficult to gain. Come to an end immediately. We've all had somebody probably just recently who has passed, and it's like, oh, they're gone, they're not here. Difficult to gain, easy to lose. And the last statement is, now we must do something meaningful. And that meaningful is train the mind. Train whatever this is, call it a mind, call it awareness, call it consciousness. Train it to see what is true yourself, so that you don't need to operate out of beliefs or disbelief. Both of them are beliefs. Disbelief is also a belief, because it's saying that that's not true. No investigation at all, just not true. So talking about post-meditation, we get up from the cushion, we go out into the kitchen or into the yard or into our neighborhood or to our job, and we run into situations with people that are maybe challenging or difficult, or bring up negativity with us, and we might even think adding on more thoughts to the original negativity. We think meditation must not be working because I'm so upset by this situation, and this used to maybe not bother me so much. Now it's really driving me nuts, as the saying goes. Pardon me. And this is why it seems to be so important to bring awareness to that situation, so that we can see that less is better. We already have a world completely exploding in our, as soon as we get up off the cushion, it's just showing up. The sun is shining, the trees are moving in the breeze, the cars are coming and going, people are talking, people are on their phones chasing Pokemons or whatever, especially these days. And there's all kinds of activity. That's enough. Just watch it. Just watch things come and go. If you're needed to change something, add to something, subtract from something, or even for that matter, ignore something, you will know. How will you know? Because your awareness is strong. Priority, that's the priority. Aware. How do you know? Pink, black. What color is that? Greenish. Sunshine, windows, laptop. We know because there's so much filling. Just be aware of where you're at. Be aware of gravity. Be aware of of colors and shapes and sounds. Without the overlay of the concept, it's a good shape, it's a bad shape. It shouldn't be there. It should be this, shouldn't be that. Just be here. Very simply, be in the room, be in your body. Don't forget gravity. And then if you are needed to move into other motions in your life with others, or with your world, or with your community, then you'll see it. Because if you're tied up with any kind of warfare, any kind of justification and validation, criticism, anything, even the slightest bit, it doesn't take much. All it takes is, I don't like that. It's all it takes to actually go like this, because then you're seeing your concept of what is there rather than what is there. Perfect. Questions? Go ahead.
If there's a really sticky situation, and
yes,
we're using our mantra or phrase or the reset button.
Yes.
And the phrase is kind of, if it's kind of an aggressive story, the phrase is getting more and more aggressive.
Yes.
What's the difference between, how can we recognize using that as a support versus using that to shut down on the situation?
Give me an example.
If there's a story rolling in your head, and you realize you're hooked by it, and you say, "Thank you very much, I have no complaints whatsoever," and it comes back, and you meet it with more aggression and more aggression, and it seems like the aggression equals the story.
You know what I'm going to say, right? Right. I'm going to say too much analysis, too much, excuse me, I think there's bugs in here. So too much addition. Keep it very simple, and have a willingness. This is an important part. Have a willingness to just be a fool. Have a willingness to just be aggressive. Because if you're shutting down on the aggression by shutting down on your idea of the aggression, then you totally miss the very part of your consciousness you need to be seeing and be responsible for. You can't work with your own aggression if you're so concerned about being non-aggressive that you begin to chew on menus instead of the actual thing. Instead of working with the actual thing, you're working with the concept of it, because that's why it's safer. You don't have to go and get your hands dirty in that situation. More.
So how does the reset button help us work with the actual thing?
What do you think? How's it look to you? This is going to be the nose blowing video.
Maybe it takes some fuel from the train.
It's doing what ego does, self-centeredness. It's very direct working with ego, just like Tong Lin practice, which I don't recommend that you practice Tong. I don't teach it, even though I practiced it myself for several decades. But I don't. When I say I don't teach it, I don't teach it out of the experience of it, not out of the concept about it. I actually did it for a long time. Don't really use it. But the upside, in a way, quite often that Tong Lin are sending and receiving while riding the breath, sending out positive energy, taking in negative energy. The way that, one of the ways that works to actually work with the mind in a way that is similar to what we're saying here is it reverses what ego automatically does. Ego automatically wants the good stuff, wants to keep away the bad stuff. So what Tong Lin is doing is flipping it around and saying, give me the bad stuff, here, you can take all the good stuff. And that's, even though I don't mean to disagree with Shantideva in the 9th century. He was a wonderful guy, and I know he could levitate. That's something I haven't been able to do yet. And I don't mean to disagree, but I'm just saying that the way I understand this is not a teaching I would necessarily recommend. Whereas I would recommend, thank you very much, I have no complaints whatsoever, because it's just not going with it, just not going with the negativity part of it, of trying to send out negativity towards others. More.
Kind of in connection with Sokuzan's asking, what can we, any thoughts on what we can do to soften our energy if it's in an aggressive situation with aggression?
I think
to soften, to say that.
I think that would do it. That would help. And it depends, everyone is wired so differently that may be a really great practice for you. And yet for some people that might not be workable for you. So I would say I would just work with it. One of the ways that that is less of a, pushing on it kind of, thank you very much, when you're actually feeling like, I don't want to thank anybody. I feel like crap, and I like to hit that guy. But instead, you're saying in your mind's ear, thank you very much, I have no complaints whatsoever. At the same time, somebody is really, really grating on you. It does something to change, yes.
Are you saying that out? You're not saying it out loud, where it could be perceived as a sarcastic taunt. You're saying, say to yourself.
Yeah, you wouldn't say it out loud to someone. I'm not saying there wouldn't be a situation where you could, but this part you'd probably be doing by yourself. And then if you're with someone, you might say it in your mind's ear, and you would be able to say it much easier if you'd said it many times, and you could just hear it. And all you're doing is you're just throwing a kind of, you could say, a monkey wrench into the thought process that is usually being usurped by ego or self-centeredness to make its case. And I'm not saying it doesn't have a case. Of course, relative truth is always showing up as praise and blame. Obviously, somebody probably did steal your lawnmower. Somebody did mistreat you or call you names or do something that was harmful. It's just that if you go there, you got war. If we buy into that situation, somebody somewhere needs to be sane. And how do you find that sanity? You start by looking at who it is that's insane. Yes.
How is that phrase different than telling yourself to accept the situation?
Accept is too remote. You're actually lecturing the ego, and ego loves that. Because then it will come back with, well, I'm just going to accept this. And it's a lie. Ego's going to play into the conceptual part. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll read the menu. You follow me? But when you say, I just have to accept it, you'll never hear me say, I'm saying this so much that it's about time I'm probably going to start saying it, because I lie all the time. But you'll never hear me say, just accept it. Don't worry about it, Bailey. Don't, just accept it. I don't do that because it's disrespectful. Because in the way in which it's disrespectful is you can't just accept. That's what awareness practice will show you. If you do enough of it, eventually you'll see that you have no control over this. Unless you get to that point, you're going to continually think that you can awaken. You're going to continually think that you're ahead of the game. You kind of got it down. I understand these concepts. I got this. Nope. More?
What if my ego wants to use that phrase as a way to accept?
That's called awareness. That's called awareness. Just watch what it does. If you're aware of it, you won't buy into that. So, thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. It's the ego doesn't particularly care for that because it doesn't have any credential with it. Like, look at all the accepting I've done. There's not a strong credential with which just comes out of nowhere. Thank you very much. I have no complaints. It's too immediate for ego. Ego needs time to regroup, pull back behind the lines, set up all the armaments and get all the defenses ready. It says, Trump Rinpoche once said, it's a paranoid insurance policy.
Can't the ego use it as building itself up as someone who has no complaints?
Yeah, when that starts to happen, come and see me.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. Quite often, this is what, go ahead.
I'm just going to ask if it could be used, if that phrase could be used to avoid actually feeling the texture of the negativity and how you
Yeah, it could, but if what is being said is sometimes we just get all wound up in it. We're not about to use awareness. We're beyond that point. We're already wound up in the negativity. We're already feeling resentful. We're already there. You can't back out of that kind of stuff. Just go back. Oh, I think I'll just go back to being aware. I'll just be aware of the texture. The texture part comes from sitting on the cushion and understanding very simply when anything arises, see the texture of it. Not what it's called, not your interpretation of it. You have to be able to see that texture. And the way you train yourself to do that is by sitting and looking at very, very simple training wheel versions. Just very simple, so that when you get up off the cushion and go into the everyday milieu of your life, that whatever starts coming at you, you have some understanding of what that's about, how to handle, how to work with negativity. And if it gets the best of you, then it starts to get a hold of you. It's got you by the throat. Then you can't go into texture. Then you've already bought into it. You believe it. It's true. It feels like crap. And then you can say, thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. In the midst of really intense feeling of complaining and being wronged.
So it's not a phrase to use on the cushion if you feel
Probably not.
and emotional.
No, it's just post-meditation. I'm not saying you couldn't. If you're on the cushion, sitting meditation awareness practice would be just observe what arises and falls. Don't do anything with it. The training there what you're training there is the awareness. What you're training in post-meditation is how the awareness interfaces with the various things that arise in the space we call the world, in the space we call the mind, all of the things that are in motion. Your body's in motion, other people are in motion, language, thoughts, Pokemons, they're all coming and going. More. William.
Going back to
You're
the
next.
about using the term, it is what it is.
I'll do that.
No.
Is that good enough? You want me to tell you now?
Why?
I don't want you to. Any more?
Perfect.
Need more? And so since you don't care, then I will tell you more. It is what it is. It is what it's too slippery. Ego will use anything it can to kind of reify its own value. You can't get rid of me. Look what I just said. I've just helped you say it is what it is. Ego did that. Self-centeredness did that. It can take credit for that. So if you say that, it's too, people that say that, the kind of situation that's the underlayment of that is relative truth. It's the world of it's the 8 worldly dharmas. It's people that are involved in success and failure, and they have a failure. Well, it is what it is. Shit happens. All those kinds of things that just kind of say it's a way of just disconnecting from it in a way that may be helpful relatively. I'm not saying it might not be helpful, but it doesn't go into the source of it. You still have to deal with it. And if an emotional tsunami comes along, that's not going to help you at all. It's like having water wings in a flood. You're not
different.
Huh?
What do you do different then? So let's say for accident, instance, you get into a car accident and you got to repair your car. It is what it is.
Don't do that.
So
Just suffer.
Just
watch. Just watch. Yeah. Just suffer. Just be with that. Be with that. Be with that. Feel bad. Bleed. I'm not saying you shouldn't do something about it, but do it about that. Don't do it in your head about it is what it is. I'm not knocking it. They sound like it. Yes.
Using the phrase with the negative, what about with the failure? What about with success or feelings of happiness?
Give me an example. I follow you, but give me an example.
Well, it makes sense to, something goes wrong, you're going to use the reset button, your mantra, to kind of curveball it.
Yeah.
When everything's going right and great,
Yes.
there's also a reset button.
Don't do anything with it. The negativity is a stronger, more strongly looking for a credential. Hell realm is more strongly looking for a credential than heaven realm. Heaven realm is pretty happy. Don't meddle with it. Just watch it. Don't believe it. Don't disbelieve it. Don't look away. So when you feel like you're really accomplishing, just notice that people want to fluff that up, and you're doing, let's give you awards, and you're doing so good, and attaboys and things like that. Those are. I'm not saying you couldn't do a little bit of that. Buddhism, the very description of Buddhism is the middle way. Not too tight, not too loose. A little bit of that, a little bit of anything. But what we tend to do, ego mind or self-centered mind, the grasping mind wants to find something and just make it into something. It's really bad, or this is really good. We want to spin it. Yes, sir.
You mentioned back in the 80s, waking up and feeling I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And then you said, I still feel that way.
Yeah, I
Ask
do.
me about that. I wanted to ask you about that.
What would you like to know?
How is that feeling?
It's still
by you now, given that it doesn't.
Yeah.
You don't appear that.
No, I don't. Yeah. You didn't see me in the morning. So where I was going with that is I'm saying the negative feelings still come and go. My karma is not any different than it was when I was born, whatever it was, 3/4 of a century ago. I'm still the same guy. My ears have not gotten bigger. I don't have a longer beak. It's still the same. So the same kind of karma is still coming and going. But I don't necessarily believe it. And the way in which I don't believe it is because there's no solid being experiencing it anymore. The experience is experiencing itself. So when it arises, I don't push it down, I don't fluff it up, and I don't look away from it. And that's not something you can actually do. What you can do is you can see through your prajna, through your wisdom eye. strengthen that. Strengthen that which sees, not that which thinks. That which thinks, as I have said so many times, is muscle bound. We all know people, or maybe we were that kind of a style ourselves, who just overthink everything. Don't do it. So the difference would be there's no solid identity there anymore. And sometimes it looks like there might be, but then I don't mind. If it wants to be an identity, it can. Sometimes I might get mad, and then the anger will look for somebody to be the person who's mad. And it's quite a mad scramble. Most people don't see that. She does. Because she's right there wondering why the hell her husband is so crazy. Right. More about that's good. There's more to be said about that, but you'd have to take me down into it if you have more.
Is it a question part of belief of the feeling, or is it just that now there's no believer? There's no one that will be believing?
A little of each. Good one. Yeah. To not believe or disbelieve, it's just there. It's just what it is.
And where did it come from? It's just there.
You don't need to know that. That is a kind of a hype that we need to find out. All you need to know is the Buddha said, 2,500. If you're a student of the Buddha's Dharma, the Buddha answered the only why question we really need to look at. Why is there suffering? Craving, grasping, wanting things to be different than they are. Why is this? Because we want something else. We want something to be different. Don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that we couldn't find some kind of why and because and why and because. And so a little bit of that is, but what happens is we end up on the why because tilt-a-whirl, around and 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 around. And then the only way you get off is to somehow see somebody who's not on there.
Yeah, when I was thinking about the cause of this
Yes.
emotion or this
Yes.
feeling that would arise in the absence of someone to be believing it, I wasn't thinking in terms of what caused it in the sense of what would be underlying. I meant if we're to conceive of this now as a sort of disembodied emotion.
Okay.
If it's a disembodied emotion, where could it have come from?
Karma. I mean, you aren't gonna, once the train starts up, it's gonna take a while to slow it down. So it's just this is the way I often say, to use show and tell, is this is the way the aggression is in most people. It's down deep, and at some point it gets so deep there they either end their lives, it's really horrible, or they go out and end other people's lives because this is so horrible, and they tend to want to project their suffering onto others. Of course, not everybody's going to do that, but there's some of it going on. And what happens with a meditator, just a way of talking about it, just an image. The meditator, over time, one of those fists starts to drop away, but there's still this going on, and it's looking for a cause. It's looking for suspects, and so it's looking for it. So, but you just have to keep through your determination, in some cases, through your vow. You just are doggedly going to stay with that and see it through to the end and see that it is unreal, even though it appears out of causes and conditions that are also unreal. But that doesn't mean they don't keep bouncing off from each other.
Is there a kind of neutrality to the energy of, say, anger? You've mentioned experiencing anger without hatred.
Yeah.
And that it has this energetic property
It does.
to it. Is that tied to karma, or is there
A little bit.
some dynamic at work that?
It's a direct question.
What is kind of what we've been talking? What is that energy that anger without hatred?
It's just energy without a self. There's just nobody driving the train. The train started, but there never was anybody in it.
How can it be there?
Train factories.
Kill the metaphor. Are other emotional states that way as well?
Yeah.
Lust and greed, are there
Oh my
purity
goodness.
of energies there that
They're just empty of a self. And so that doesn't mean, I mean, what's been kicked off is going to keep spinning for a while. And this place, along with lots of other places, has been spinning for a long time. We're actually living in something that's spinning. And it's spinning around something else that's spinning. And that spins around something else that's spinning. There's a video I just recently posted, and I don't post many videos, but I posted one on my Facebook. Did anyone see that? Of the woman laying in the grass, or laying, and there's her eye and her face, and they slowly go away, back off into the universe, clear back to, I don't know which galaxy they're in, but it's way, way back there. And then they come back, and then they come down to her again, and then they go back down inside of her eye and look at the, what is it, ribonucleic acid. Sounds good. Yes.
I guess one of the reasons I'm kind of personally pursuing this notion of the energetic state is wondering if there are ways of moving that, shifting that energetic state.
You mean moving your baggage from a train to a plane? I mean, is it like that?
Well, I mean, energies move. I mean, move in our body, in our mind. Wondering, are there other techniques that, besides chicken taza, for
chicken tacos,
seeing that energy and working with it?
Yeah, there are, and there's, and I've worked with a few of those. There's tantric practices which involve millions of mantras and recitations and visualizations of deities and visualizations of chakras and all kinds of very, very elaborate gingerbread religious stuff that is very involved, that gives the ego mind something to do besides create wars and create, and big fights. And so that is a way of working with it. There's lots of ways of working with energy, and lots of other disciplines, Tai Chi Chuan, yoga. There's all kinds of working with body, mind, body, mind, body, mind. But my interest in everyone I talk to is to get you to wake up right now, directly. I'm interested in your awakening. I don't care whether you're a Buddhist or not. I want you to wake up and see who you are. If that entails being a Buddhist, if you want to practice mantras, come and see me. I'll give you all kinds of them. If you want to do visualizations, there's White Tara practices. Right here in a zendo, it's a Tibetan altar shrine. So there's lots of different kinds of things. But since you're here, since all of you are here, you're here lots of different reasons, but you're here out of the causes and conditions that arise around each person's particular difficulty with their life or confusion. We all come here in different directions, and here I am sitting here saying, wake up, find out who you are. That's what I want everyone to do. And I don't necessarily want you to become something else or follow some kind of path. Just because I know about it, I'm not going to teach you how to do Vajrasattva mantra, which is 100 syllables long. I did that. I needed to do that. I probably had to do that. But you don't.
So is the awakening kind of an end run around all these kind of issues?
No, it's not even a run. It's always right here. It's the Dzogchen teaching of Longchenpa. It's a great perfection. Everything is available right now. The way I say it is, what you're looking for, you're looking at. It just may be a lot of thick scrim you have to go through to get to it. But you don't have to look over here. There's nothing else. There's just this, always. This is what Dogen Zenji said in the 13th century. Firewood does not become ash. Firewood is firewood, ash is ash. And if you think firewood becomes ash, you'll suffer. Yes, sir.
How thick is the scrim?
Depends on your particular karma and your tendency to add more onto it. Don't add to anything. Life is difficult enough without coming up with other kinds of ideas and rotating around things. Just take whatever comes. That's why I often say, when you're sitting and sitting meditation and holding very still and endeavoring to see what arises, whatever arises is exactly what you need to work on. For one person, it may be just watching the breath come and go. Oh, hum. It'd be kind of boring. Another person may be intensely involved in a conversation they had with their, with one of their friends or their employer or coworker or something that just won't leave them alone. Someone else may be sitting there and be swamped by emotion that they have no explanation for. Quite often this happens, and people who practice sitting meditation a lot eventually get swamped by emotion with no story. I can get swamped by emotion by just thinking about certain things. I get so overloaded I can't talk. So that whole situation is very mutable or malleable. You can move things around once you find out the nature of boundaries and the nature of walls, like it says in the Heart Sutra that we do in the evening, without walls of the mind, Mukhe Geiko, without the actual structure that the mind sets up to protect its imaginary self from being interfered with or ego. The walls of the mind, boom, done for. And then it's just an open dimension of being, which doesn't mean there aren't boundaries, but then there are the obvious natural boundaries that come out of everything that is dependently arisen. Eden?
Can you say more about fire with fire with ash with ash?
So that's a teaching of Dogen's in the 13th century, and it's Dogen, as Trungpa Rinpoche did, had an ability to talk about relative and absolute truth in the same sentence. And he said, firewood does not become ash. Even though, and he's using that because obviously it does. You have firewood, you burn it, it becomes ash. But what he's trying to point out is the momentariness of our existence. That you can't be in the future or the past. There's only this. There's only this. And it was his way of emphasizing the immediacy, temple of immediate light, the immediacy of our experience, that you actually can be wherever you're at and completely awaken on the spot. It doesn't happen often, but it's there and it's waiting for you. Firewood doesn't turn into something else. Ash has its own past and future. Firewood has its own past and future. So it's kind of a koan, or a mystical puzzle or whatever that you can reflect on it. Further questions? Bailey?
What are the reset buttons resetting?
I think a simple way of saying it would be we're starting to get angry. We're starting to get, ruminate around in our mind about maybe even revenge, or it might be not the kind of obvious revenge where we're going to come out and hurt somebody, but just kind of, what do they call that? Adhesive, no, not adhesive. Subversive.
Covert operation.
That's close. Huh?
Passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive. That's what I was thinking. Paste, passive, adhesive, passive aggressive. What was I going to say about that?
What is the reset button reset?
Instead of
thank you.
regular revenge.
What?
Talking about revenge.
Yeah. What was I going to say?
When you're preparing to do it, maybe not outwardly by going out and killing the person, but through this passive
And I'll
aggressive.
tie that into what she said.
Turn the camera.
Not a chance, buddy. That would be the end of my teaching career. And this would be an opera and stand-up comedy show.
Yeah.
He's also a stand-up comic.
And a sit down comic.
Huh?
And a sit down comic.
And sit-down comic. I thought I was the only one. So what it's resetting is that tendency to want to actually get some revenge, passive aggressive, to kind of go around the corner and nail somebody for what they did, or make them regret. They're going to regret that. Those kind of thoughts. They don't perhaps they don't come to the surface so we can even hear them, but they're going on. And when you see that kind of a situation, you can just cut through it and say something like that. And this isn't for everyone to do. But the reason I even brought it up, I just had someone tell me through a text that that's something I've talked about off and on. Said that it was really helpful to them to do that. And I thought, well, maybe I would say something about it today, about reset buttons in post meditation. More.
You talked about the importance of using this light to wake up
Yes.
in this lifetime.
Yes.
And you also said that you've only met 2 people that were awakened.
That I know
of.
That I know. Yes.
So it sounds like being awake, you might as well buy lottery tickets because you're more likely to win a lottery. No? No? Could you elaborate on that?
I can elaborate on it. You know, how many rooms are there that like this? And it's not because I'm so special. It's because I'm just the opposite of that. That's why you can hear what I'm hearing is what you need to hear. I have no doubt about it. And the way I have no doubt about it is there's no speaker. There's just an audience. So you're hearing what you need to hear. If you could tell yourself what you needed to hear in order to awaken, it would be the same thing I'm telling you. And it's not like, what a wonderful teacher. Maybe we should get a whole lot of other people to come and listen. I don't think so. This is good right here, just like it is. If you all awaken, then I've done what I came here to do. So that many more people are awake. But other teachers function in different ways. They just want to be meditation teachers, I guess. Go ahead.
What about Coben's and Trungpa's students? They had lots of students and probably.
How many are more awake?
Yeah, well, you.
I don't know, go count them. It's not actually cause and effect. It's not. They caused me to awake or I caused you to awaken. I just take away all your options until your ego is starved to death. Or you see the idea and you do it yourself. More. Joka.
What options are you taking away?
Ways to shore up your self-centeredness. I do that to you all the time. What are you smiling for? That's better. And it doesn't mean that it happens overnight. You can't, it happens lifetime after lifetime. Yes.
You know, you say not to worry about it and it doesn't matter, but if a baby was left alone.
A really nice baby.
Do we fall
A
asleep?
baby with bad karma.
Is it something that happens to everyone? Is it the covering up, the thickening that everyone has to go to? Or is it a cultural based?
It's all of that. And that's why it's so extremely complicated.
So the baby in the private room would still go through all of this if it didn't?
I don't know, probably something like this. But it wouldn't be as figure-outable if you knew exactly how that worked. That doesn't mean that suddenly, now we know how to do this. It's extremely complicated and vast. Extremely. So therefore, what do we have to work with? Just this moment, just this body, just this mind, just this life, just these relationships. And as I said the other day, when there was 2 or 3 people sitting here in the room for Mountains and Rivers, which is something I do in the talk in the afternoons in the middle of the week, is the way it looks here, if I could get every single one of you to just stay here and practice from now on the rest of your life, and if I could flip a button and do that, I would do it. Because I know how important this is. Because I don't have that kind of say-so. All I can do is be as straightforward as I can. And then you deal with your karma. You come here as much as you can, or maybe you don't come very much. Maybe you go through periods where you come here a lot. Maybe you practice at home a lot. It seems to be so. What I have seen in the years that I've been practicing is how really difficult it is to not continue to pile things onto your wisdom eye, just out of hope and fear, or being unsure, or looking for some kind of relative proof of something. That's why it says at the end of the Song of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi, like a fool, like an idiot. like a fool, like an idiot. In other words, you know, you're going to have that kind of thing, or your ego isn't going to trust what you're doing, and your ego will put you right back on the merry-go-round, right back on the tilt-a-whirl. So it's feels very lonely to step off from that track. You don't really have conventional friends.
If what you're looking for, you're looking at, why is it so hard to see?
Fear. We keep throwing things up or generating things to get in the way of it out of fear, to protect us, protect something, protect who we think we are. So that's why it works to just be insistent. Just insist on it. Continue to return to the cushion, return to the teaching. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Buddha is the example of someone who was sane. The Dharma is the truth that he taught. Everything is dependently arisen. There are no solid separate beings anywhere. Everything is dependent on everything else for its singularity. And the Sangha, the community of apparently separate beings who are trying to understand this teaching, who are somehow on some level inspired by this. And something resonates there from this lifetime or 100 lifetimes ago. And they're back at it. We're back here again. We're going to understand this. Yes, sir.
Like a fool, like an idiot. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So the idea there is because sometimes when we're sitting here, this is just a way of understanding it there. I'm sure there are lots of other ways, but sometimes we're sitting here, especially if we've been here for a while, for several years. And eventually the thoughts might come up as, this is crazy. What am I doing? I mean, you know, I could be out panning for gold. You know, I could be back in the flagpole business like my dad. It's not that funny. Ethan's not laughing. Ethan's my touchstone for if something's funny. I can get him to laugh, and it's probably funny. And then my next step is to try to get Kevin to laugh. I think I'll just hit Kevin. Be easier. So like a fool, like an idiot, it's like that's how it arises as we're practicing. If you practice a lot, eventually, one of the ways you notice this is in retreat. If you go into a strict solitary retreat for several days, or the ones that I recommend is at least 10 days, and then possibly after you've done a 10-day, maybe do another 10-day, or do 2 weeks, or maybe do 3 weeks, or maybe do a month, or maybe do a couple of months. But at some point, when you're just doing nothing but practicing day after day after day after day, and that can happen here in the practice residency too, interacting with others and cooking and studying and everything. Sitting 6.5 hours a day is a big dose of holding still and doing something completely useless. Like a fool, like an idiot. Do it anyway. This is why that's being said, because that teaching person, that was Tozan Ryokai in the 9th century, wrote that. And he knew what it was like to be a monk and sit there and do something that felt totally ridiculous. And he knew he had a lot of people to work with, and he was trying to, my understanding of it, he's trying to figure out a way to talk to them to kind of intercept that a little bit ahead of time, so when they do run into that, they at least have that teaching. Well, Tozan said, like, here I am, it's happening, like a fool, like an idiot. Well, I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to insist on this spiritual life, this spiritual path, which transcends everything. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So is the only way to starve the self-centeredness is to stop adding?
I think that's part of it. There's something that happens. I mean, I say don't do the math. Don't add, don't subtract, don't divide, and that translates into the 3 poisons. But so I say that, but on the other hand, within each person's personal mind stream, it's going to be a little bit different. So I don't want to get in and interpret too much for you. I would just say, just don't add. And when I say that, I know you can't stop adding. If I can't stop adding, you probably can't either. I add all the time. I've been adding ever since I got up here. I've been adding ever since I got up this morning. But if I say don't add, what does the mind do it? You bring your mind to see the way in which you add. And if you see in the way in which you add, then you see the way in which you subtract, and the way in which you separate yourself. And then you begin to see how that whole structure works. Your awareness starts to flood that area. And you begin to understand that. And what you will find at some point, you continue, that there's no solid self there. It's a very sneaky way to sneak up on ego. Because if it knows you're coming, it's gonna fool you. More? Good question.
Thank you. It just seems like, similar to what Sokuzan said, sitting in an unending cloud of, that's what it feels like.
That's awareness. And so when you run into the cloud, keep going. I have a cloud name myself. My Dharma name, my private Dharma name is Native Cloud. Native means that here I am, and I'm cloudy. She has a cloud name. She has a cloud name. What is your cloud name, sweetheart?
Kaun.
Kaun. What does that mean?
Fire cloud.
A fire cloud. I wonder why you have that name. Yes.
If there is an emotion that arises that seems to jive with the story that's ongoing, does that mean there's belief in that?
There's nothing wrong with listening to the story. You can see whether you accept or reject it, or whether you do anything with it. If you don't do anything with it, then you see the texture of it. As soon as you start to do something with it, you stop looking at the texture of it, and you're just dealing with, you're getting rid of something that has a description. More?
On a relative cause and effect situation, does the thought come before the emotion, or the emotion before the thought?
Both. Snicker, snicker.
Trumper said emotions are like high-speed thoughts.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on that?
Thoughts are like slowed down emotions. I think what he was endeavoring to do. We don't even know what a thought is. We have them all the time, but I've never seen one. We don't know if they have a front and a back. We don't know if they have bumpers on. We don't know if they're really thin. If they're doing this, we don't know. We don't really know what those are. We just know that when I say I've been thinking about what you've been thinking, that I'm thinking, you know exactly what I'm saying. I mean, there's not like, what do you mean by thoughts? You have thoughts? You don't say that. So what is that? What is that shared reality that we call thinking?
Imaginary.
Yeah, it's imaginary. It's both real because it's there, and it's imaginary because it has no validity to it. Just like past and future, that's another one that is very, very sneaky, to believe that there's a past and a future.
So how do you know if a thought is not something from the past? Like based on our conversation earlier, when things came up and I asked you, like, sometimes a question, did I just make that up? And
it doesn't matter.
Right. Okay.
Did that answer your question? If it didn't,
well,
keep coming.
No, I guess maybe I don't know how a good way to ask the question.
Well, then I'll have trouble
Well,
answering.
I guess, are you saying that it doesn't, whatever a thought is, it just never matters?
Oh, I didn't say that. When I say whatever a thought is.
Or what the source is, it doesn't matter what the source is?
What are you pointing at?
It's a spider right there.
Oh, spiders. So, if it does matter. I mean, it matters. It's there, but the whole idea of something being present or now, that's happening right now. It's right. It's this. It's right now. Even though it's about the past, it's still right now. Everything is happening, and even physics talks about everything is happening at one time. That whole idea of time is an illusion. And one who begins to work more and more with his or her awareness begins to see how the whole linear thing of time is a suspect. More about that.
Not right now. There's another
Darn,
question.
I know it. I can see it. It's
No,
like
I don't know what.
it's like written in Sanskrit.
I know. What does it say?
It says, "Mice are not green." I don't know why I would say that. There's a green one. Sorry, I didn't mean to make light of your question. Further questions, please. Yes, sir.
Can you share a few more words pointing at what the ego is pointing at?
What the ego is pointing at?
Well, the ego is the concept.
Okay, I'll try. You might have to ask more questions because you're not going to get much here.
Okay.
The ego is pointing at other. That's how it gets its own identity. You're great, you're beautiful, you're wonderful. It's not a compliment. You have one of the most beautiful noses I've ever seen. Did you just bat your eyes at me?
You noticed.
No, my ego noticed.
What is the function of the ego?
To stay real, to stay alive, to be someone, to be successful, to not fall into ill repute, to maintain some kind of ongoing identity that has some value, and to also stay away from harmful other, and to get to joyful or beneficial other, and get help and get approval from others. That's a really powerful one. If you know, any of you know that somebody who's disapproving of you, even if they're incorrect, we don't like that. We want to go and tell them, no, you don't understand. I didn't do that. You misunderstood. I didn't say that, or I didn't do that. We're really concerned about what others think. So that would be a simple way. I'm happy to respond to another question, but basically ego goes that, or you, or other. And it does it to another person, it does it to a thought, that thought, rather than the realization that nothing is separate. If you realize nothing is separate, everything completely stays separated, except you have a secret. It's an open secret. You can tell everybody. Nothing is separate, but it's an open secret because you have to realize it. Yes.
It seems that using the word ego points at a kind of entity or some type of functional other, but it doesn't look like that when I consider what my ego is. It looks more like a stream of thoughts or concepts or relative understanding. Is that one way to look at it?
That's called conceptual awakening. You have an understanding that is conceptual, but it won't save you from an emotional tsunami. That whole structure of I understand conceptually will crumble. It has to be deep in your heart. It has to be so deep that nothing can touch it. Why? Why can nothing touch it? Not separate. You have a separated understanding of it. You understand your mind being a series of, but that's still very, very conceptual, even though it's very relatively pretty accurate. But it's like starving to death reading a recipe. course, the image only goes so far, but it's that kind of thing. It's not enough. You have to actually bake the cake, preferably angel food. More.
Is there any other way that we can talk about ego that would aid in a deep understanding of no separation?
Nothing that's arising seems to be necessary to what you're asking about seems to be available on the cushion. You yourself have to do that. I'm doing as much as I can. I feel like a fool sitting up here and talking about it from the point of view of doing anything other than engaging with people where they're at, trying to respond to them where it looks like they're at, meet them where they're at, and also encouraging you to please go back, train your mind. Spend a lot of time doing that. Spend a lot of time sitting still and watch what continues to move, because what continues to move is our belief, our assumptions, our separation. Is as His Holiness the 16th Karmapas said on his deathbed in 1981 to the Vajra Regent Ursula Tenzin just before he died. Nothing happens. It's a relative statement about ultimate reality. You're not going to be taken in by that, are you?
Nothing happens when you die?
Huh?
You mean nothing happens when you die? Or?
I think my understanding, His Holiness just meant that basically all the cause and effect that's going on is an illusion. The living, the dying, the this and the that, and the past lives and the future lives are illusory. They're pretty fancy, but they're unreal. That would be my understanding of what he meant, but I wasn't able to talk to him.
Has there been a conversation in like the original, word I want to use, formation of this concept or context of ego, and why was it just out of boredom, or you know what I mean? Is there a conversation around that, or?
I mean, why did I give a talk?
Yeah, like what's the origination of ego or self-centeredness?
Yeah.
And
I think
is there any knowledge around that or wisdom around that?
Well, I think it's surfaced in lots of different ways in religions and recently in psychologies, and seeing that people are at war, people keep killing each other, either whole nations doing it or individuals, one kills another. Jealousy, resentment, greed, and all of those things are operating. And the Buddha 2,500 years ago saw that, as the story goes, he saw sickness, aging, and death. He saw someone who was ill, very old. He saw someone who was very sick and was dying, and someone who was very, very old, and he saw a corpse. And then he also, if you use all four of them, he also saw a monk. He saw those four things. And so then that put him on the path. He gave up his kingdom, as the story goes. We don't know what happened for sure. He gave up his wife, his son. He left much to his father's dismay and went out into the forest and practiced for 6 years and awoke to ultimate truth, not separate. Nothing is separate. Everything is dependently risen. And so that dependent origination is functioning in terms of people feeling like there is somebody here who can win something over there or is threatened by something over there. And it just builds into nationalism and racism and prejudice. And it's just lots of news sometimes. It's just, and there's very, very educated, civilized human beings validating this kind of push and pull, that we should attack them and they need to go down and this needs to happen. We need to stop these people and do that. It's rare to find someone in a national, on the national stage that says, we should just live in peace and help one another. Someone like the Dalai Lama might talk, or His Holiness Karmapa, or other religious leaders. The Pope even these days is talking more that way than he has in the past. So ego is just, as Trunk Bernfitche said, a paranoid insurance policy. It's just a way of locking down on something based on paranoia that we're gonna have to protect ourselves because the Dharma spider. It jumps.
He's been really engaged.
Has he? Yeah. Consciousness. It's arachnid consciousness.
He's jumping on that coffee cup.
He likes it.
And then when he passes things, he kind of goes up and looks.
No. Spiders are interesting. Any other questions before we close and have Oryoki? Fancy 3-bowl meal. You ready to do that? Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.